Okay, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to weave a pouch using a cardboard loom. We're going to be using a comb, and we'll use this comb to mark where our lines that we cut. So I'm going to line this up to the edge and then make the lines all the way through in between the prongs of the comb. And these are just going to be a guide for where we cut into the cardboard to string our yarn. And I'm just going to line up this edge to the one line that I just marked. So I'll take this, line it up to this, and then take it all the way to the edge. Okay, and then we'll take scissors. I have little baby scissors, but you guys will have big scissors. And we'll cut in between these. So you might use the tip. That's going to be really hard to cut. So go more towards the base of your scissors and cut those through. They don't have to be too deep, just enough for the yarn to be held by it. Fringe at the top where I cut into the cardboard. Okay, and then I'm going to start putting the yarn on, and this is our warp thread, and it goes vertical, and it really doesn't matter what color we use. You won't really see it once we start weaving. This is almost, a warp is like the bone structure of the weave itself. So I'm going to stick it through the first little notch. I'm going to leave a little tail, and we're just going to leave that till the end. Don't worry about it. We can tape them down so that they're out of the way. And we'll take this and warp it down underneath. And we'll go around the cardboard to the next notch, stick it in, and then we'll go down and around till the next one. So you're just gonna go over and over around the cardboard, putting the yarn in each little notch we made. And we can slide these over. Try to make them as straight as possible and even. It's gonna help us. Go to the next one. And you do this all the way till the very end of the cardboard. Okay, so I weaved mine all the way around, and I did my tension on my yarn a little too tight, so my cardboard's a little bendy. But that kind of helps because it kind of separates the yarn from the cardboard. And to start, we are going to use these plastic needles to help us weave through our project. I'll use the pink one just so that there's some more contrast. And then I'll just thread the needle through. And then if you want a certain amount of rows of a color, you can take your yarn, take it off of it. You can take your yarn and kind of wrap it around. If I want like 4 different rows of this color, I would wrap it around like 4 times. And that kind of helps gauge how much yarn you should cut off if you're doing a certain design. Okay. And then leave a little bit so that you can tie on to another color and to the loom itself. Okay. Take that off. And then to tie on yarn, especially when you're first beginning, you want to put it through and then make a like little loop, kind of looks like a fish in a way. And then you take one end and pull it through the center and it creates a little knot, or pull it all the way down. And this is secure now. Thread it through my needle. Okay, we want to go over and under. This is the weft and this is the warp. So we go over, under, all the way through. Over, under, over, under. And you might have to pick up the yarn to get it over and under. You just pull it through. And then the reason for the comb, another thing, is you can take this and stick it through, and it helps kind of push that yarn all the way down to the bottom. And try to keep your yarn kind of equal distance apart. And then normally with a normal weaving, you go this way, but for when we're weaving a bag, we're gonna go turn it over and start weaving this way. And then continue the over under. All the way. Okay, and then we'll use the comb to push that down. Okay. And then again, when we do the other side, we're gonna flip this over. And then we're gonna look at these ones. Did I go over this one? Yes. So I'm going to go over the one that's next to it and then under the one. So just look at the previous stitch of what you did and then do the opposite for the next round. Okay, and then you'll see it'll go over the edge, and that's where it's gonna connect to the other side, and we'll use the comb to push it down. And try to spread out these a little bit more. Okay, and then again we'll flip it over and then we'll look at this side. Okay, I went under this one. I'm gonna go over it and over, under, and then you continue to do that for each layer and color of string that you want to add. And I'm gonna do 4 layers of this color, and then I'm gonna switch colors. You can go as far as you want with each color. It's really up to you. I'll take my comb and push it down. try to get it as close to the bottom as possible because this is creating the bottom of our bag and we don't want anything to fall out of it. So try to get it closest to the edge of that cardboard. And then I will continue that up all the way around till it gets to the desired length that I want. Okay, so then I'm gonna flip this and start weaving. So this one went under, I'm gonna go over. And then pull it through. And that knot might get a little caught. And keep that warp string, the long one left out of there. And you will have a little knot stick out. We can, after we're done weaving, we can flip the thing inside out and all those knots will be hidden on the inside. Okay, and then we'll continue on with the string. Okay, so I have finished how far I want my weaving to go. And now I'm going to show you guys how we're going to make the flap. So we'll have our end of the yarn and we'll tie it together like we did a color change. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over. And string up our yarn, fold it over, and then I'm going to do this side. So I'm going to go over or under, over, under, over, under, over, like we did for the rest of our bag, following that pattern. And then pull it through. And don't pull too tight on this because we don't want our little flap to be almost triangular. We don't want it to do this. But instead of turning it around, we're gonna go back the other way. So we're gonna go under this one and then over, under, over, under, over, under, all the way through. And then pull it. And then we'll use the comb to push it down. When I have ends that I've tied in, I have flipped all of the little knots to one side of the the weaving, so that if we want those knots hidden, we can flip this thing over on itself when we take it off, and those would be hidden on the inside. But then we will take it around this one and go under, over, under, over, and we'll do this all the way till we get to our desired length of our flap. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And don't pull too hard because it's going to do that. You want to keep it loose. And take our comb, like we have been doing, and push all of this down. And then I'm going to continue this for probably another inch, inch and a half, maybe 2 inches, and so that I can create that little flip for it to come over to this side. Okay, so I finished my little flap. Mine is about probably 3 to 4 inches. I went a little bit bigger just so that when I put something in it, it can still close. I'm going to show you guys how to finish this off. So I'm going to take the leftover string from my yarn that is weaved and tie it to this piece right here, just so that it doesn't come loose. And then I'll cut off this little tail here. Okay. The next step is we're going to cut these little tabs right here. I try to do it in the middle so that the one side keeps it in the frame with the little fringes there, so this doesn't unravel on us. I like to do at least 2 at a time. And then I tie a little knot and tie them together. And this just prevents any of those strings that we just spent all of our time weaving in won't come out. Come on, scissors. There we go. All tied together, and you can trim these and make them shorter, but you can also keep them long if you want like some sort of fringe. Okay, and then these ones, we'll take them off of here and then tie them together like we did on the back. Okay, so now it should be free from the cardboard now that we have all the ends tied. So just pull it off. really gently. Some of the edges of the cardboard kind of catch on it a little bit. And it should, if you're careful, just come straight off. You mess with those a little bit, and they should fix themselves. And then there's kind of the idea of the pouch. I'm gonna trim some of these edges so that give it a little haircut. Okay. And then this little tail, I'm gonna stick it through and then tie it into a little knot as well. And trim that. Okay, and then I am also going to flip mine, just so all these knots and everything go on the inside. And there's that. And you can clean it up as much as you want. And then you can add a button, a handle. You can add, turn one of these into a buttonhole closure by tying them together. That's how you make a pouch.